Hi there, this is John Drew from Elevated Planet, bringing you the first ever episode of the Twiglet Zone. Fantastical tales accompanied by a savoury snack. So here we go with episode 1 of the Twiglet Zone. I've written all this out, so it's there for you to read on the email or on the website. Feel free to do so. I'm going to read it out because I don't want to miss any detail by winging it, which I probably would do. So here we have it. And just to say, hand on heart, I believe these Twiglet Zone stories to be true. So you may consider them quite fantastical, or you may actually believe them also. But that is for you to decide. Episode 1 is on the mysteries of the pyramids. This is part 1 only because this is a huge subject, so it is going to be broken across several parts. The pyramids have puzzled mankind for millennia. How could the pyramids have been built when even our modern day technology and know-how would struggle to complete such tasks? Well, the facts according to the Twiglet Zone are these. The Egyptian pyramids were built using levitation through telepathy, often accompanied by singing or playing of very specific tonal frequencies. The levitation was carried out by priests who were deeply schooled in this knowledge. The levitation techniques could not have been carried out by the average layperson, although lay people would help carry out many of the tasks. For instance, during the more demanding stone placements, the priests would arrange the people to form a large unbroken circle. Deep concentration would follow, and the group energy from the unbroken circle would be manipulated by the priest into the right frequency and directed to levitate the stone into a very precise position. I mentioned tonal frequencies as another way to create levitation, and these were often used in harmony with the psychic technique. Sound energy is far more powerful than we give it credit for. In some past civilizations, sound energy was used in defense, to render people unconscious or even to kill. Sound can be used to make things invisible, just like with Harry Potter's cloak of invisibility. And moving from Harry Potter to the Bible, there is a biblical reference to the power of sound in the book of Joshua, with Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, where sound from the blowing of trumpets caused the walls of the city to collapse. It is known, even in our modern narrow perception of reality, that sound frequency can shatter a crystal glass. Well, we have to expand our minds to realize this phenomena exists well beyond the realms of crystal glass. It all has to do with harmonics, the natural method of finding the mathematical equation that makes an object tick, then focusing on that specific sound frequency. Strangely, everything in the universe comes down to numbers, including sound. In the case of those tonal frequencies that assisted with the levitation of the stones, the Egyptians had wind instruments that emitted the specific tone required, much like Joshua's army in the Battle of Jericho. There would be several instruments emitting identical tones, and each person would take it in turns to play, with the next player beginning before the previous one ran out of puff. That way there was never a break in the sound, and the priests could manipulate the energy to do the task that was needed to be fulfilled. At the point of origin of the stones to be quarried, rather than each block being laboriously chiseled as you might imagine that it would have to be, harmonics and the psychic power of the mind were used to cut the stones into exact shapes and sizes. Such is the power of the trained mind of the priest to change the energetic structure of a solid object. The frequency at which the stone naturally vibrates could be speeded up such that it would become butter-like in consistency, and as such could easily be cut or molded before being returned to its natural stone vibrational frequency. The priests would then accompany the levitated stones on their journey to the point where they were ultimately slotted into place. Of course, to us in the modern era, this sounds impossible. But one thing we do know is that everything in the universe is made up of energy, all vibrating at specific frequencies. Relative to stone, the molecular structure of our physical bodies vibrates much faster. That is what creates our pliability relative to the solidity of stone. If we had the ability to manipulate the energy frequency of other objects, then all the above becomes possible, and so much more. And there is so much more to tell you. This is where the episode of the Twiglet Zone ends for this week, though, because we're going to reserve the next section for next week and then beyond that as well. So in conclusion, I would say that having researched these subjects, I regard these Twiglet Zone stories as reality. However, I completely respect that for many of you, this may be too much of a departure from your version of the truth for you to be able to accept it. Having lived in a left brain dominated world for the large majority of my life, I understand why you'd feel this way, because not that long ago, I'd have been right there with you. But for me, the veil of illusion has been lifted, and I've learned that fact is often so much stranger than fiction, and it does truly fascinate me. So before you make your decision on how you feel about the content of this episode, I encourage you to take a few moments to go deep, to quieten the noise of life, to switch off your defensive ego mind, relax, breathe deep, thereby accessing your higher self. Then I'd be very grateful if you would provide a 1 to 5 truth rating of this episode through the gift of the Twiglet Zone Deludodometer. The scoring goes as follows. Score it a 1 if you feel this represents the truth. Number 2, if you think it might be true. Number 3, if you're on the fence, you can't decide in either direction. Number 4, if you believe this might be a little bit deluded. And number 5, if you do believe that this is deluded nonsense. Well, I'll leave it with you to decide. And thank you so much for watching this first ever episode of the Twiglet Zone.